Trapmore Gang, the kidnapping of Savannah Guthrie's 84-year-old mother, Nancy Guthrie, has sparked a whole lot of questions about some very suspicious things. The kidnapping itself is now being linked to the Epstein files. Some of Savannah Guthrie's reporting on Jeffrey Epstein and actually being involved with the victims of Jeffrey Epstein's trafficking is now being called into question, and a lot of people are wondering if this situation is actually directly linked to Jeffrey Epstein, the Epstein files, and the efforts to basically shut down anybody putting out information about the victims of Jeffrey Epstein. Now, if that's the case, I'm scared. But I'm going to break it all down for you guys in this video, any of the connections between the Epstein case, the kidnapping, and some stuff that is actually quite hard to ignore. So there's been some interesting TikToks going around about this, okay? And people have basically been saying that, you know, somebody suspiciously searched for her address prior to the kidnapping. And also, essentially, okay, they're saying that maybe that this is a direct warning to journalists that are reporting on the Epstein case, people that have reported on the Epstein case, people that have tried to expose the Epstein situation. And that is actually quite alarming to me personally.
Or proof of Grand Junction, Colorado's connection to Nancy Guthrie's disappearance. I told you yesterday, someone in the Grand Junction, Colorado area was searching Nancy Guthrie address before her abduction. Well, today I've got specific dates, more data, and I'll tell you right now, it gave me chills when I saw it. Those Grand Junction searches didn't just happen the day before Nancy vanished. They date back weeks. Digital records show searches for Nancy Guthrie address on January 5th and January 17th of 2026. But it goes even deeper. Search log shows someone in the Grand Junction area searched for images of Nancy Guthrie as far back as December 19th, 2025, again on New Year's Day, and then again on January 23rd. That's nearly 6 weeks of activity before she ever went missing. Think about this. If you wanted to abduct or burglarize someone, what would you do? You'd look them up. You'd want to know what they look like. You'd keep searching to see if there are new pictures of them, right? And the fact that this continued right up to a week before the abduction tells me this wasn't random. This was premeditation. And now, thanks to some incredible TikTokers, we've discovered that Grand Junction isn't just relevant to Nancy Guthrie. There's also a new, bizarre, documented tie to Jeffrey Epstein. Just this week, a local news station there revealed Epstein's Western Colorado connections in the Epstein files. In a new set of subpoenaed financial records, Grand Junction is mentioned in multiple money transfers connected to Epstein. 2 checks, both list payable to Wells Fargo Grand Junction right there on the bottom corner. Why Grand Junction? Why that bank? And there's more. According to recovered email exchanges from Epstein's own schedulers, one referenced that Jeffrey was, quote, interested in trips to Grand Junction. We already know Epstein traveled out west often, but this shows he had specific interest in this Colorado town that's not even that big. My question is, does Epstein still have associates in Grand Junction? And who the hell are they? Now, flashback with me to 2019. Virginia Guthrie, one of Epstein's most outspoken accusers, sat down for that haunting, unforgettable interview on NBC's Today Show with Savannah Guthrie. In that interview, Guthrie directly named both Epstein and Prince Andrew as abusers. She blew the lid off that whole circle of abuse for the world to see. Since that interview, Virginia took her own life, leaving Savannah as the lone survivor of the two. So ask yourself, Savannah Guthrie helps expose Epstein and Prince Andrew. And a few years later, her mother, a random 84-year-old Arizona woman, is abducted after weeks of targeted searches from a small town Epstein himself was linked to financially and personally. I'm not a conspiracy theorist. In fact, I usually unravel conspiracies. But when I look at this, the timing, the digital trail, the Grand Junction Epstein connection, I have to ask the tough question, was this a kidnapping or was it really retaliation? If the intent was to cause Savannah Guthrie maximum pain, to torture her psychologically, that would explain why the ransom letter never led to a proof of life. It would explain why the perps chose January 31st, a day before Savannah was supposed to fly to Milan, Italy to cover the Olympics, one of the biggest gigs of her career. Maybe this wasn't a kidnapping after all. Perhaps it was something far more sinister. This information has been shared, as always, with the FBI. Somebody in Grand Junction knows exactly what happened. And to that person, if you're watching, the clock is ticking. We're closing in. Let's get justice for Nancy Guthrie.
This is scary as hell, okay? They're saying Epstein had connections in the area that they were from, and really the connection with, essentially Savannah Guthrie interviewing Epstein's victims all the way back in 2019 is a big part of this. So let me show you a little bit of that. This was an interview that was conducted just a month after Epstein's death. And I suppose maybe the powers that be, maybe the people that maybe got rid of Epstein, maybe, who knows, might have been a little bit upset that this story didn't just go away and die with Epstein. A month later, people were still dragging it up. People were still talking to the victims. They were still looking for justice. It might have been a mistake what happened to Epstein. So let's just remind ourselves of what was going on with that.
This is everything. The only solace for me is that when a group of people who've experienced trauma of this kind come together united against a common enemy, there's a very special bond between us all.
A painful bond shared among these 6 women sitting together for the first time for an exclusive interview with NBC News.
I find it very comforting to be here.
Marika Chartouni, Anushka DeGiorgio, and Rachel K. Benavidez sharing their stories about Epstein for the first time on television.
I think the nature of this kind of abuse means that you're conditioned to be silent, to be isolated, secretive, and shameful.
I feel like, it was a big game for him, and we were the pieces of his game.
And you're like, I'm just not going to say anything because that's what he told me to do.
The women all have familiar stories of grooming, promises, and then sexual assault.
I can relate to pretty much every person sitting here next to me.
Virginia.
So this is what was going on. Okay, Savannah Guthrie was leading very serious interviews. Okay, people are saying no one's been arrested besides Maxwell. Now Virginia Guthrie is dead. It is a little bit suspicious. And the way Virginia Guthrie went out was very, very suspicious. All right. I don't personally believe the official version of events, but that's just my opinion. Now, interestingly enough, okay, as of February the 17th, 2026, so just a few days ago from when I'm recording this video, local Colorado news outlets have actually also begun highlighting Epstein's established ties to the state of Colorado. And these ties apparently date all the way back to the 1980s, apparently.
Robbie? Yeah, thank you, Hannah. Now, dozens of files publicly available by the DOJ mention Grand Junction, Aspen, Durango, and more areas across the western slope. Now, these ties include money transactions, ski trips, and victim testimonies.
Millions of newly released files on Jeffrey Epstein reveal connections to Western Colorado. In November of 2005, the state attorney for the 15th Judicial Circuit's Money Laundering Task Force in Florida sent online banking company Western Union a subpoena. Under a felony investigation, the task force requested any information related to transferred funds related to Epstein. Attached to the subpoena are 2 copies of checks, one for $100, the other for $75, both paid to Epstein. In the bottom left corner of each check reads the words payable at Wells Fargo Grand Junction. The reason for these transfers and Grand Junction's mention is unknown. Grand Junction is also mentioned a few times in relation to trips to Aspen. One email chain from July 2012 involves an itinerary which brings the involved parties through Aspen or Grand Junction from Zorro Ranch in New Mexico. One email reading, have you heard of any other trips like to Aspen or Grand Junction? Epstein visited Aspen many times according to these files. One email reads, wheels up at 8:15 a.m. tomorrow would give us arrival 10 a.m. in Aspen. Another, can you tell me, was it you and blank who went with Jeffrey to Aspen, Colorado? A financial report also shows art seemingly purchased by Epstein in Aspen in the early 1980s. Further south, emails between FBI investigators mention a victim of Epstein in Durango. This happened in 2019. Emails.
So look, he's still over there. He's getting victims over there. People are saying these Jackson Hole and surrounding areas are where girls disappear. They're saying, are they going to investigate this? People are sick of these monsters. It is a little bit creepy, all right? It is a bit creepy when it links in to the Nancy Guthrie situation. Okay, so like interestingly, if you check Google Trends database, this measures the relative popularity of search terms on a scale of 1 to 100. It does reveal a spike for a brief search for Nancy Guthrie address. And basically, it happened in Grand Junction, Colorado, and this was as early as December of 2024. So, okay, let's pull this up one sec. So this is a screenshot of basically the search that happened in Grand Junction, where it was actually Googled by somebody in December of 2024 for Nancy Guthrie's address. And then this goes back all the way 5 years to 5 years. And obviously the people Googling it now doesn't really count because she'd been missing for a minute. So over the past 5 years, this doesn't count because it's recent, but like over the past 5 years, there's been several people Googling her address. This was in February of 2025. It's 56. That doesn't mean 56 hits, but that means like a 56% search ratio. People were Googling her address at the end of 2023 into 2024. This is just in Colorado. And even back in 2022. Now, it's interesting, right? Because at the end of the day, you know, these Epstein files getting exposed happened in 2019. And there's not really too much activity to point to, but essentially people had Googled her address over the recent years. And, you know, that could be an indication that somebody was trying to find her location in the lead up to this kidnapping. It's quite spooky. Interestingly enough, it would appear that the same thing occurs 6 months before her abduction for image searches in September 2025, 5 months before her abduction. So this is image searches, I believe, for Nancy Guthrie address. And there is just a big singular spike here in October of 2025. Sorry, you can't see that because I'm in the way. But as you can see, people are on here in Grand Junction Googling her address, Googling her images. And if we just go to straight Colorado, it's interesting. It won't show us that now. But as you can see, she is getting Googled. Her address is getting Googled. It is quite suspicious. That was a web search, image search. See, it's weird that Google Trends, sometimes they'll just kind of take your results away from you. Like if I just paste in exactly what I had here a minute ago, then see, now it's disappeared. Now it's, oh, that's convenient, isn't it? That's convenient. Well, there it is again, because I took a screenshot of it before. But it is interesting, right? Google be giving you a bit of info, and then they'll be dragging it back, saying that we can't show you that. Don't even want to know why that's the case. But basically, okay, there has been, you know, very, very few serious updates. And what's interesting is one thing to note. Now, apparently, basically, people are no longer trusting the FBI. Okay, this basically says a sheriff accused of letting his ego derail the Nancy Guthrie case as FBI pushes to take control. Now, there's pressure from the FBI who are very eager to take over the case, but there is criticism from the mainstream media because some people, not me, of course, some people think that the FBI have actually been part of some kind of Epstein cover-up. And if this is connected to the Epstein case, some people are scared. We don't even know if we want the FBI to be messing with this, okay? So this says, as Nancy Guthrie, I'll be saying it wrong. Nancy Guthrie's loved ones anxiously await her returns. The investigation intended to provide answers has descended into turmoil. Reports allege that Chris Nanos, the sheriff overseeing the case, has allowed personal ego to interfere with the investigation, particularly through a recent wave of media interviews and his alleged feud with the FBI. The FBI is said to be eager to assume control of the case, but is unable to do so without authorization from Nancy Guthrie's family. So they're saying ego's getting involved. That's a big claim. The sheriff overseeing the investigation has come under fire for allowing the case to turn into a personal ego trip. It's a common belief in this agency that the case has become an ego case for Sheriff Nanos, said Sergeant Aaron Cross, who presides over the Pima County Deputies Organization. That's a pretty bold thing to say. Part of the reason Nanos is believed to have derailed the case with his ego stems from his decision to grant multiple interviews to news outlets. In those appearances, he appeared more focused on damage control than on providing substantive answers about Guthrie's kidnapping. While also giving the impression that he lacked a firm grasp on the investigation, the sheriff turned a serious investigation into a rolling spectacle, from questionable decisions to shifting narratives and a disastrous media cleanup tour that's raised more questions than it's answered, an anonymous source remarked about the case. Leadership in moments like this requires discipline, not damage control, the insider added. That sounds like it was written by ChatGPT, okay? So apparently the sheriff is reportedly not keen on having the FBI take over as investigations continue. Now, it depends for what reason. It says, amid the ongoing controversy, the FBI is reportedly eager to take over the case. However, despite the agency's greater expertise in investigations of this nature, Nanos is said to be reluctant to relinquish control due to its long-standing feud with the FBI. According to reports, the feud dates back to 2015 when the FBI launched an investigation into the Pima County Sheriff's Department over the alleged misuse of civil asset forfeiture funds. At the time, Nanos had just assumed leadership of the department and went on to lose the next election the following year. He is now said to harbor resentment towards the FBI still, as he allegedly believes the agency played a role in costing him his election. It's widely believed that he thinks the FBI cost him this election, Cross alleged about Nanos, who returned as sheriff in 2020. So apparently the FBI is getting frustrated. It says nearly 3 weeks have now passed since Nancy Guthrie mysteriously disappeared from her home. Aside from a video of a potential suspect recovered from the home security camera, no substantive evidence has emerged. DNA material collected from a glove found near Guthrie's home has yielded no matches in the FBI database, and the same has been reported for DNA recovered inside the residence. All of this, combined with Nanos's handling of the case, has reportedly led to the FBI growing frustrated. Over 2 whole weeks into this, the police have made no leads, no progress, a federal source revealed. They were never confident in the glove. The press conferences are not going well. Giving press conferences without saying anything, it's not helpful. Okay, Sheriff Nano's critics believe that the FBI should take over the investigation. So it says, for the FBI to fully take over the case, the agency would require explicit permission from the Guthrie family, which has not yet been granted. Maybe they don't trust the FBI. As the public waits to see whether that will change, Cross, an outspoken critic of Nanos, has argued the agency should have led the investigation from the outset. The FBI should have taken over the case within the first few days, and we've been treating this as a kidnapping, and the FBI is the premier agency to deal with kidnappings in the world, Cross revealed, before emphasizing how Pima County's resources and personnel are limited. The FBI has way more resources than that, way more personnel. They should have taken the lead, in my opinion, and the opinion of many. We should have gone through a supporting role, he added. So it says, as the investigation into Nancy Guthrie's disappearance continues, Sheriff Nanos revealed that he had cleared her relatives and loved ones as suspects while calling people who tried to paint them as culprits. I don't think I really saw many people saying that. So we talked to them, we took their phones, we took their computers, Nanos said per reports. I mean, we did everything. We processed their vehicles, their homes. They have been really their victims. Okay, Sheriff noted how cooperative and gracious the Guthries have been throughout the investigation, but it does make you think. Have we got comments on here we can look at? Oh boy. What are people going to say? That sheriff also has a reality TV show regarding his police department and where they're located. Yeah, I don't think he's got Nancy's best interest at heart. I think he's getting all this stuff for the reality TV show. He needs to recuse himself of this investigation. People are saying, I don't think it was his ego. He was more likely his inexperience of working a case of this magnitude. He seems like a good guy, just not a sheriff experienced enough for this case. Until the sheriff says categorically that it is a kidnapping, I believe he is and will remain the person in charge. From my understanding, the FBI is the prime agency responsible for investigating kidnappings, not burglary, which is a city and state responsibility. So, there's a lot of suspicion around the FBI, especially in the way that the Epstein files have been handled now. Interestingly enough, Pima County Sheriff Chris Nanos has reportedly locked down the investigation, and he's strictly limiting the sharing of any information to only a few select insiders and basically not letting the FBI know what's going on. So it says, embattled Pima County Sheriff Chris Nanos is under fire for locking down the investigation into Nancy Guthrie's abduction, limiting all decisions to just himself and 2 senior officers. It says Nanos, who was also facing intense scrutiny for sidelining the FBI, is only allowing Chief Jesus Lopez and Captain Juan Carlos Navarro control over the hunt for Today host Savannah Guthrie's missing 84-year-old mother. He will only let himself and 2 of his hand-picked staffers make decisions on the case, one insider said. Said everybody else is being told what to do. No one else has a say-so or an opinion. It's just 3 men making decisions. It's incredibly unusual to do that when you have so many people working together and the FBI are involved, they added. It's limited to the thought process of 3 men. They keep everything from the FBI. They just aren't sharing. The source ripped Nanos as pompous and said that he's more focused on being in the spotlight rather than finding Nancy. Says Lopez serves as the department's second in command, overseeing daily operations, while Navarro, a senior command officer, supervises major cases and investigative strategy. Second law enforcement told the source, the outlet, that it's highly unusual not to have an experienced detective leading the probe on the ground. So no actual detectives are steering this, just command staff. This is highly unusual. Normally, an experienced detective would steer it and provide updates through the chain of command. So they're saying that the top dog is basically keeping this all for himself. But that doesn't mean that the FBI aren't still at least trying to dig into this. And according to some, the FBI is actually doing their own investigation into the abduction. So now we've got 2 warring investigations. So it says the FBI now has photos and names of people they believe might be the suspects seen on the surveillance video outside Nancy Guthrie's front door. What appears to be a gun holster. They're talking to employees at local businesses and gun shops and asking them if they recognize any of their faces and names. CBS News' John Vigilotti has more info.
Names of people they believe may be the suspects seen on that surveillance video outside Nancy Guthrie's front door with what appears to be a gun and a holster. They've been going from business to business, including gun shops, talking to employees, asking them if they recognize any of the faces and names and if any one of those people made any purchases. Our team has been driving around going into gun shops. We spoke with one person at one gun shop that confirms he received a packet of a few dozen people. The photo photos appeared to be from driver's licenses and from social media. He was asked if he recognized them. He said he did not. He plugged their names into their own database. Nothing came up. KOLD, our local CBS affiliate here in Tucson, also visited stores and spoke with one person on camera. Take a listen to what he had to say.
Tuesday to Thursday, one of those days that an FBI agent came in. This is all the information that we fill out. They don't have to put a phone number or an email. Anytime we get a firearm sent into the shop or somebody comes in to buy one, we have to add them as a customer because we got to get all their information for the 4473 form.
It's unclear where those photos and those names came from. We do know that the sheriff's department has had their own parallel investigation into the backpack it sold exclusively at Walmart stores. According to the sheriff, he tells me that Walmart handed over their own list of purchase records and names, but whether or not the two are connected at this point is unclear. This is day 18 of the search for the suspect or suspects and for Nancy Guthrie.
So it's really sad, man. And so Redditors have basically been discussing the conspiracy behind this. There's been a lot of connections with Epstein. There's been sort of very interesting, people noticing interesting timing of this case. It's all very bizarre. So this is a post on r/conspiracy. It says, constant Fox coverage of Nancy Guthrie is an Epstein warning. First off, I do feel terrible for that poor old lady. She definitely wasn't involved in anything that warranted her being kidnapped and made it a display case of. But the non-stop nationwide coverage is absolutely insane, bordering 50% of Fox's new television coverage. 84-year-old woman missing 15 days down that requires life-preserving medication. Fox is showing the blood from the scene today for the first time. There's an extremely slim chance of her being found alive by this time, unless she's being used as a hostage. I'll wager that we're going to get a pretty gruesome update sometime in the near future. Savannah had recently met with a good amount of the Epstein victims. She was putting together, or had put together, an article that would explode this massive cover-up of Trump and all the other monsters involved. She probably sent it to fellow journalists and friends she trusted as a safety measure. The satanic elitist group had her mother kidnapped as a warning to anyone and everyone that they will murder the entirety of your family, friends, and anything that matters to you for talking about Epstein to the public or trying to release hidden documents or undeniable proof. Nancy Guthrie is the unfortunate example of the levels that they will go to protect themselves, and only people with the evidence understand why her kidnapping is the biggest news story in America right now. Oh, and leave color out of it. Red, blue, black, green, I don't give a F. If you're R-wording and killing children, they all deserve punishment worse than our capital justice system allows. TLDR coded message, shut the F up if you're thinking of releasing evidence of the Epstein case. Oh boy, that's tough to hear. So I said this right away and got downvoted into oblivion everywhere. It's the only thing that makes sense. And now Guthrie is publicly saying she wants to retire from morning news right on time. I don't believe she's in on it. I believe she's in on it as well. I think all of this is fake and they're playing a role. I think that's cap. Michael Feldman. Do we Google Michael Feldman? Do we do it? Okay, Michael Feldman is Savannah Guthrie's husband. And there is a little part here about the Epstein files. I'm not going to lie to you. I'm not going to cap. It says in 2026, Feldman and Glover Park Group were part of a controversy when an email from 2015 was released as part of the Epstein files. A Clinton administration acquaintance of Feldman, Larry Summers, told Jeffrey Epstein he should speak to someone at the Glover Park Group, telling him the firm had helped Bill Clinton and David Petraeus. While it was a passing mention, it still caught the attention of many who shared screenshots of the email on social media, yet no evidence was released that showed Epstein took or refused Summers' advice or any communication between Epstein and Feldman's firm. In an interview with lawyers Ben Chu and Camille Vasquez regarding the Depp Heard defamation trial, Feldman's wife Savannah Guthrie revealed Feldman had worked as a PR consultant for the legal firm representing Johnny Depp. Politics is scary. It's scary, okay? No idea who she's married to, what are the odds, what an interesting coincidence in a long line of coincidences. Saying Harvey at TMZ is involved too. All right, but there isn't a journalist in this country who isn't very scared that OP is right. I'm glad someone else has said this because I feel like I'm the crazy one around everyone else right now, just trying to keep people aware and spread updates. Unfortunately, half the people I conversate with seem clouded, like whatever brainwashing-ish they're feeding us is working on people. It just makes me feel numb and helpless. I don't know what their end game is, but I hope we blow the lid off it in my lifetime. Okay, oh yeah, it was definitely a message sent. Speak out against us and bring it to normies' attention, and this is what happens. They won't go after you, they'll go after those you love the most in your life. Huh? Okay, I'm getting more and more scared now. My cortisol levels are definitely spiking. Okay, cortisol levels are out of control. The Tucson sheriffs are denying access to physical evidence to the FBI. They don't say this, but I hope that they think the FBI is involved. I also wonder how much of this is to distract from the Epstein file release with other news. It's literally to distract mothers and women in general from the Epstein news. That is insane. Just seems like such an odd random target, assuming the perp isn't somehow directly connected to Guthrie. It's not like she's super well known or a huge celeb. I mean, she's not obscure, but she's not at the level of Barbara Walters or anything. So yeah, I think you could be right. It was a message. And by the way, they were able to retrieve video from her camera, even though she didn't subscribe to that service. That means the vid goes to servers for storage, whether you know it or not, whether you want it or not. I think that only applies to Google, well, Ring doorbell cams, and not to say Google smartphones. Savannah's husband is a high-powered Democrat operative. You're close, but I don't think you have the puzzle pieces quite connected. Correct. She's a Democrat operative. The Democrats are also presenting certain survivors as victims who were of age at the time and willingly participated in Epstein's crime circle, i.e., S-workers, while failing to speak for real unnamed victims while being financed by shadowy people. Savannah is the one who ridiculed Trump over the idea that he was fighting to bring down a global network of satanic PDFs, acting as if the idea was something completely crazy. Now she's the one supposedly exposing the Epstein network. Sounds too improbable. Interesting, right? But if Savannah Guthrie isn't reporting it, wouldn't just another journalist take over? She's just doing the job the Today Show is paying her to do. But the message isn't to her, it's to journalists in general. Okay, message received, folks. Message received. All right, I'll show you one more thing that's going around on the conspiracy subreddits, and I'm going to wrap it up and go into hiding. Nancy Guthrie and Epstein timing plus pizza delivery. Something isn't right. Oh my God, they got the pizza in there as well. That's crazy. Okay, I know how this sounds, but hear me out. Savannah Guthrie's mum, Nancy Guthrie, 84, goes missing in Tucson, supposedly abducted. Masked suspect caught on camera. Bitcoin ransom notes start showing up. Chaos, confusion, and zero clear motive. But here's what's been bothering me. 1. Timing. It happens at the same time window as the Epstein file discourse is resurfacing and victims are starting to appear publicly again. Savannah Guthrie is one of the only mainstream anchors who interviewed Virginia Guthrie, different name, on record. Other interviews were reportedly squashed by networks, so why her? 2. The FBI language. The family statement was not normal. It sounded like an institutional acknowledgement, not grief. This sounds like AI. We received your message and we understand. This is very valuable to us. We will pay. This isn't please bring our mother home. That's we understand the structure of this. It reads like a compliance signal. 3. The pizza incident. While the FBI was actively on the scene at home, an unknown person ordered pizzas, Domino's, to the crime scene, and the delivery guy was able to walk right up. In 2026, with crime scene tape and law enforcement present, why is a pizza delivery even getting through? If you know the cultural symbolism that's been attached to pizza in Epstein-adjacent Discord, that's a very weird coincidence. And it's the perfect intimidation move, deniable, absurd, but loaded. This feels like a message, not a kidnapping. This feels like some AI stuff. If this was about money, why so sloppy? If it was professional, why the amateur casing behavior and messy note trail? If it was random, why an elderly woman in a low-crime, affluent neighborhood? This doesn't feel like a cartel. It doesn't feel like an organized crime. It feels like symbolic intimidation, not for the public, for insiders. I'm scared. 5. Distraction value. A major anchor's mother being abducted becomes a national story instantly. It hijacks media bandwidth. Meanwhile, the Epstein discourse gets buried under a high-emotion missing person narrative. Convenient. The theory. What if this wasn't about a ransom at all? What if it was a message to journalists that certain interviews are no longer safe and the punishment won't be direct, it will be family? The pizza delivery is the calling card. The statement language is the compliance ritual. The case itself is the spectacle. Anyway, I know this sounds insane, but this whole thing feels like it was designed to just be plausible enough to keep the public confused. Thoughts? This is in the r/conspiracy subreddit. We haven't got to take it fully seriously, but I am actually quite chilled by that. It says, dig a little deeper. Savannah Guthrie's husband is Michael Feldman, who was on Bill Clinton's campaign. He was technically referred to as a communications consultant, but it's known to be tasked with being the Clintons' cleaner. And I don't mean janitorial, more like wiping servers with a rag. I don't follow. He kidnapped/killed his own mother-in-law to intimidate his own wife. So his mother was kidnapped to keep him silent about Clinton deposition, the Epstein, China, Clinton scandals, which caused like 3 deletions in Clinton's cabinet. Okay, we're getting a little bit tinfoil hatted now. So I thought it was odd how much coverage Guthrie has been getting. Of course, I don't want anything bad to happen to her, and it's a terrible situation, but she's an 84-year-old woman with medical issues, and it's been 10 days. The prognosis doesn't look good. By the way, over 300,000 children go missing in the US annually. They don't even get close to the media coverage this one lady has been getting. It's been constant ever since it was originally reported, and the timing is definitely suspicious. I'm glad you mentioned this. Sucks the lady is missing, but it should not be half the headlines. I absolutely do not effing care. Distraction for sure. It's absorbed almost the entirety of the media's attention. In the meantime, the ICE surge in Minneapolis has recovered 3,364 children as unaccompanied minors known to be missing since they crossed the border under Biden. Not children that came with their families, unaccompanied minors. In Minnesota alone, has anyone heard about this? More people know about how many random latex gloves have been recovered in the greater Tucson area than they have about any idea about 3,000 children recovered in Minnesota. in the last 3 weeks? Is one deranged radical leftist going to acknowledge that? Or the SAVE Act, quite possibly the most significant legislation of our lifetime securing our elections? Who's even talking about it in real life? 76% of black voters are in favor, but Democratic senators call voter ID Jim Crow 2.0. They have zero integrity. They're going to shoot it down without ending the filibuster reps. Republicans, representatives? Republicans don't have the 60% majority to pass it. Dem voters support voter ID, but Nancy Guthrie has the airwaves so saturated that no one even realized this battle for your right to legitimate democratic elections is at stake. I think it's a dark world with dark, calculative people in power that will go to any ends to ensure people are distracted when their actual freedom is at stake. Not saying those people took Nancy, but 100% they're taking advantage of the blanket media coverage to drown out what we should actually be paying attention to. As someone who is paying attention to what they're trying to get away with while we're not looking, it's terrifying. It says, you covered all of the thoughts that have been bouncing around in my head. Conspiracy theories are only conspiracy theories until they're proven true. Maybe I'm just jaded and don't trust anyone in our government anymore, but there are a lot of dirty people who aren't under the microscope or in handcuffs, and they should be right now. Saying, isn't Savannah married to one of the co-founders of the Glover Park Group, a strategic communications and government affairs firm that's done work for the Clintons and was recommended to Epstein? Yikes. All right, yikes. This is crazy. Now they got CCP, they got the Chinese are involved. It's crazy. Okay. I was scratching my head trying to figure out why this kidnapping story is taking over the media. There's always an ulterior reason. They only shove in our faces what they want us to see. And you've hit the nail on the effing head. This is super weird, but the average citizen isn't even going to dig this deep or question anything. It's so frustrating. We're being so obviously bamboozled. It says you forgot to add the first suspect they arrested got let go in a few hours. Dude said the police didn't even interrogate him. He got out of his vehicle after noticing someone following him while he was door dashing. Then they raid his house. That's weird as F. Then again, not the first time Cash arrested the wrong person initially. Lol. Yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy. All right. Yeah. This is scary. This is super scary. I'm scared. I'm scared. That's super scary. This is a conspiracy. This is an r/conspiracy. I can't indulge in this entirely, but I mean, I've been talking a lot of shit about the Epstein files, so yeah. I don't know. Maybe I'll find some other stuff to talk about. I actually have. I'm getting the chills. I'm getting goosebumps right now. This is super spooky. I hope that that's not the case. You know, I hope that this is some kind of mistaken identity. I do feel like it's highly possible that like these ransom letters are just fraudsters trying to get some free Bitcoin out of the situation. I could see that happening. I mean, it's most likely she's not alive anymore, right? They're saying that she needs medication daily. She's not getting it. I don't know. I'm hearing rumors that there's some kind of link in Mexico. She might have been taken to Mexico. I am super scared. But like, look, let's be real. Like the Epstein connection does make the most sense. Like that's what she's known for, right? She was exposing Epstein a month after he died with the victims. They're trying to silence all the victims. Virginia Guthrie shot herself after having a car crash, which didn't make sense. And then they dragged out the fucking bus driver to like, go and watch the video I did about Virginia Guthrie, man. And then you'll get the gist. I'm scared. I'm going to stop now. I'm so scared. I'm so scared. I'll just take all the Epstein videos down and just go back to talking about rappers. Maybe that will help me out because these guys are way more scary. I'm you know, the Bloods and the Crips, they get on my case, but like the Epstein hitters, yeah, I'm scared of them. So look, all right, I don't even want to say anything crazy. This is nuts. All right. So look, let me know what you thought of this video. Let me know if you think this conspiracy theory is absolutely out of control. If you think it's got some merit, I don't know, but I'm scared. So I'll catch you guys in the next video. I'm going to wrap it up there. Wow. See you soon. Bye.